County Sports Live. For the East County Sports Report, Dave Dickens, I'm Ramon Scott. Dave, well, we got through week one. Some great ball games, some upsets. Some games didn't go our way, some games went our way. One thing I can tell you about week two, some of these games I'm going to have to pin you down because they are too close to call. I think I know which way you'll be leaning, especially on some of these games where we're playing other section teams. I think I know which way you'll be going, but still, it's going to be curious because a lot of the games this week are very close. Tell me just your observations about last week. Great opening week, especially for the El Cajon Valley Braves and the Valhalla Norsemen.
You know, I had some great conversation. I wish that we could have had it. If we could have had it recorded, it was just a fantastic, heartfelt conversation that I had with Mr. Clarence Johnson of the El Cajon Valley Braves. And, you know, what he kept preaching, though, was team, 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 team. It was a complete 100% team effort. And, you know, that is the way that Coach Osborne has really drilled it into their head is there aren't individuals. They are a complete unit. And honestly, there's other Valley teams that are talking about the Braves. And that, as a matter of fact, I heard something today about the passing league, and I can't remember which team it was, but it was a bigger team. It might have been Helix. It might have been even Steel Canyon. But they said, "I'll tell you what. Looking at the way that the Braves were passing, and they know Nick Osborne pretty well. They said, I'm not calling a CIF playoff team, but they are definitely going to be a team within the next 2 or 3 years that's possibly going to win a league championship."
Well, I'll tell you what, right now the victory, Dave, has reversed the Braves' playoff fortunes. I know we're only in week one, but going on the road and winning a game where you're an underdog in the rankings, the ratings, if you will, that is what gets you moving up the ladder. The Braves have done that, and right now they kind of control their own destiny. It really almost doesn't matter what happens. You don't want to get, if you can pull off a win in league, that's going to be big. I know the Braves want to win every game, and I want them to have that attitude. But this game was huge, and the fact that they're playing another game this week that looks like it's going to be closely rated, a game the Braves can win. Start this season 2-0. We're going to be playing football till the end of, at least till mid-November. So I think that's huge for El Cajon Valley. They got that win over Francis Parker for the first time in 18 games on the field. Of course, they won a forfeit against Sweetwater, but, that wasn't on the field. So that's why there was so much emotion after the game. Demarius Hyde had that 80-yard touchdown late in the third quarter, and our man Clarence had the 70-yard score in the second quarter, and the Braves celebrated that emotional victory huddle with head coach Osborne, and couldn't help but notice the picture that we saw of Clarence with his head in his hands after the game, obviously overcome with emotion, and coach consoling him. Not consoling him, they were just so happy and relieved.
He almost, if you didn't look too close at it, it almost looked like a Tebow, like he was doing a little Tebowing from years ago, the way. But this kid does have a lot of emotion. The way he spoke of his teammates and the system and how they're held accountable. I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but you know what? The way that this whole program is designed, I tell you what, I think that is one of the reasons why El Cajon Valley is going to be as successful as I think they can be. Heard lots of good things as you heard the conversation that I had with Coach Osborne about Joe Malone and the way that he held his own. He made a mistake, an ill-advised throw. He would the next play he didn't see somebody open. He knows how to use his legs, good field vision. You know what? I think this kid is a true quarterback this year. He's really had a lot of tutelage under former quarterbacks like Atlantis, and I think that is going to be one of the key ingredients as well.
I will caution you that the Braves failed to complete a pass in the win last week, but Malone certainly is a great, great leader out there. But what about Hyde and Johnson, Dave? They combined for 245 yards, and that Braves offensive line, Wendell Walcott, Kevon White, Salvador Morales, Israel Torres. Oh, man. And don't forget Isaac Ochoa. They were terrific.
And here's something kind of ironic. I know that we don't want they like to talk about the cliche of one game at a time, and I know that they got the Hoover Cardinals coming up, but isn't that ironic that 2 weeks from now, the last game that they won 2 years ago was over Claremont? Different coach, but that was a last, and that was another one that was very emotional, and that they won for their old coach, Paris Bassona. I mean, I find that kind of interesting that game is on the schedule, and that's another very winnable game.
They're winnable games this week. Look, I'll just say it. The Braves are expected to beat Hoover this week. They are, flat out. El Cajon Valley made a crucial defensive stand late in that game. Francis Parker was in range to maybe get that game-tying score, and the Braves, Mario Jacobs finished with 13 tackles. The defense did the job in the clutch. Now Hoover comes to Priest Field. They're off a 33-0 loss at home against Montgomery. The Braves' prospects for victory, Dave, could be as high right now as their rising confidence. I like the Braves this week by at least a touchdown.
I completely agree that it's definitely going to be a Braves win this week. I think that Hoover might even take them a little too lightly. However, I do think it might be a little bit closer. It might come down to a little fancy footwork and a 3-point advantage. But at the end, Braves get another win. They go on to Claremont at 2-0.
Well, the Cardinals are going to have to watch out for Demarius and Clarence. I mean, that's the bottom line. These guys have big play. They got 2 touchdowns, Dave, and they were 2 long touchdowns by our favorite guys. So,
and they got the speed. They have the protection. I tell you what, you're right. It's going to be hard to stop that tandem, and it's going to be hard for when it comes time for league. I tell you what, you better watch out. Some of these teams are probably overlooking the Braves. Santana, we heard Nathan. He said he definitely was not overlooking the Braves, and he welcomed the competition. And I quote.
I know the Braves are looking forward to that one, but we got a long way to go. And again, Dave, the Braves really winning one league game will really seal their deal when it comes to the playoffs. But if they can get off to, we said it out there when we were with them, and it's you don't want to say it like that, but I said, man, if you guys could just get the first win, then 2, then 3. I didn't know they were going to go out in the first week and just really win that game, flat out win that game. So they got that out of the way right away. We're ready to proceed, and more winning is on the way for the El Cajon Valley Braves. Dave, speaking of winning on the way, I think we talked about the possible improvement of the Valhalla Norsemen, and yeah, they lived up to expectations. They exceeded expectations big time last Friday night as the man Keegan Baker rushed for 265 yards and, just 5 touchdowns, including a 71-yard score. Last Friday, Valhalla snapped their 18-game losing streak, upsetting visiting University City and quarterback Gunnar Gray and former Grossmont wide receiver Skip Waltower 34-20. Valhalla won that game. The feeling for the Norsemen was not only one of victory, but of confidence. The way they controlled this game, the feeling in the stands, the overall atmosphere, it felt like even though UC went down and got that first score, once Valhalla came back and kind of quickly got the momentum back, it was all confidence on that Norse sideline.
Well, let's think about it from last year. Last year we saw, at least I did, but the East County as a whole, they saw the Centurions 3 times last year. We saw them play Monte Vista. We saw them play Christian twice, one of them being a CIF game. And exactly what you were talking about, that they got a stellar quarterback behind center, definitely knows where to put the ball, definitely knows how to run the offense. Monte Vista struggled with them at the beginning of the game. And of course, if they didn't have the McClendon, they might have had a little bit of a tough. And same thing with Christian. Look at that. They had a split with the Centurions. So, we've seen a lot of them. They got speed. They got great receivers. They have great line. They get plenty of time and he's not so much a mobile quarterback either. He's got a heck of an arm and lots of accuracy. So with that being said, I think Valhalla really proved that they are on the up and up and that they are working their way up into competing in this really tough Hills League.
No, that's another story, but still, Valhalla, I expect them to win more games in the preseason here. At the conclusion of Friday's game, the Norse players celebrated with a water bucket dump over the head of 64-year-old head coach Mike Caston. He gave just a poignant interview after the game about, how this one was for the kids. But, going up this week against West Hills, this might be kind of our game of the week in a way, because we do have 2 conference teams facing one another. Keegan Baker is going to be the man to watch, certainly, in this game. He runs with that shifty speed. He can engage would-be tacklers with speed and power. Vastly unheralded, but everyone talks about the big game he had against El Capitan last year, setting a school record with over 350 yards rushing. I think his notoriety will continue to rise through the county as his number of big yardage games pile up, running behind an offensive line consisting of 4 juniors and 1 senior in Anthony Stevens. Valhalla's ground game is a problem for all comparable opponents, and I've certainly have West Hills rated as a comparable opponent. This is your first test, Dave. This is a close game to call. Can't wait to hear your analysis on the whole game. Right now, I'm going to give you that. I'm not going to say yet. I'm going to wait, but it's a coin flip.
I completely agree. However, and you know what? Let's just talk about it briefly. I mean, the freshman team, the JV team, and the varsity team, they cleaned house versus Southwest El Centro. Okay. Was it really the formidable opponent like they were 3 years ago? Definitely not. Their numbers are down. They got a lot of way to go. So really hard to say if you want to judge how really great they were with the score. Not to take away anything from Coach Ash and his squad. His defense did really well. And we also know, he plays both ways. And we know the man. And it's the big man that you can go ahead. He's your favorite. So you can go ahead.
For Jake Mayhew, he rushed for a pair of touchdowns, and fellow senior Cole Klingerman hauled in 5 passes, including a touchdown, and kicked 4 of 5 extra points. West Hills, 34-7 winners over the Southwest Eagles in that season opener. And they're going to get a chance to stop Keegan Baker. It's a great matchup, really. I think if you talk about Jake Mayhew and Keegan Baker, kind of, 2 similar players, Valhalla is going to be rated a little bit higher now in the power rankings, maybe based on, coming from the Hills League and the stronger league, despite this long losing streak. And I think West Hills knows that. I don't think this is catching them by any surprise. I think that home field advantage for West Hills will neutralize this game, and I think that's why I'm calling it so close. Let me give you some other stats, Dave, on that game for the Wolfpack. Stephen Christini, 142 all-purpose yards, including a 46-yard run, a 37-yard kick return, a 26-yard punt return, an 18-yard reception. I don't know what else he could do. And West Hills senior quarterback Gerardo Hernandez, they played both quarterbacks. They both did well, but Hernandez was 4 of 4 passing for 118 yards. Despite the recent dry spell by the Norsemen, they are dramatically improved. This is the real deal. We're not talking Hills League contender just yet, but considering what's gone on over the last 2 seasons, there is a different feeling there, and West Hills they're going to be ready. This is not catching them by surprise at all.
Well, I'll tell you what, you hit the nail on the head, because that was the first person I was going to mention before you mentioned him, and that is Stephen Christini. I'll tell you what, that guy can do anything. He kind of reminds me of give me his name, tall, skinny guy, number 1 last year. He was a senior. I don't have his name, but he was a do everything guy, just like Christini. I think he's filling the same spot. It's just that quickness. He's able to read that field. I just think that he's probably one of their biggest assets on both sides of the ball. And let's not forget about the secondary also. I think they played pretty well against Southwest. Let's see what they have against the Norsemen, because I don't see the Norsemen really passing so much when they got Baker. Everybody knows it's kind of going to be kind of like a McClendon type deal. They're going to hand him the rock, probably 30 times a game, and they're going to let him win that game. He does have hands too, so maybe little short dumps off to him, maybe a couple of screens. But really, I'm going to say Smurf Field, they have the advantage. They have the fans. The fans are loud there. They love their pack. I'm going to take the pack by 7.
Yeah, Luke Pillsbury for Valhalla. He was efficient in his passes. He did run the team very well. They did not throw very often. I just think the Wolfpack maintained many of the key elements that have kept this team formidable throughout these years under Coach Ash. The dynamics of this matchup point to an extremely close game, as I said, but congratulations, Valhalla. You got that win. It's off your shoulders, but now you're going on the road against a conference team. So don't be surprised, Dave, if this game ends up tied at the end of regulation. I've got West Hills winning this one by the slimmest of margins. Valhalla, prove it on the road, and man, we'll all be jumping on that bandwagon. All right,
Absolutely.
Dave. Yeah. Dave, go with this one next. Look, this is a very, very nice matchup, because what you have here are 2 teams in the county top 10. Poor Steel Canyon, man. They're facing, fortunately, at home, 2 ranked teams in back-to-back weeks. Steel Canyon, of course, defense and special teams has to be their mantra at this point after they beat Eastlake 17-6. Dave, the Cougars had just 99 yards in total offense of that one. On Monday, we talked to Steel Canyon senior Viliamu Ayu Morse, and he had 3 sacks and a fumble in the win. Junior Akintunde recovered 2 fumbles. Antoine Walker 4 pass breakups. Chance Johnson had a pick, a pass breakup, but it was Chris Carter's 80-yard kickoff return that set up a big touchdown, a 12-yard run by Wes Neely. And it was also, Dave, Chris Carter's inability to stay in bounds that cost the entire special teams a trip to the Chinese buffet.
Yeah, and I tell you what, we remember that was one of the key conversations that we had when we visited camp over there in Cougarville, and we heard the explanation of that, and that Coach Longerbone could very well go broke when it comes to his whole budget, specifically regarding that all-you-can-eat Chinese. And those are some big boys he's got on that defense, including those defensive backs. So there's going to be a lot of food you can feed those guys. And I think that's another thing that people were overlooking is those defensive backs, that secondary, they are not only are they fast, but those are some big dudes they got back there. And I think that is going to be the key for the Cougars this week and every week, I think, is what's going to take the Cougars to the promised land. Not to take away from the offense, because you do have Wes Neely, you do have Chance Johnson, and they're going to carry the rock. You're going to get some big, hey, I think either one of them are going to be great on kick returns. They're probably going to mix it up. I wouldn't be surprised if both of them are get a couple of those big long kick returns. But let's hand it to the defense on this one too. I think I don't want to say that the Cougars have their hands full. I don't think this is the same Madison team that we're used to seeing. We saw them last year. You saw them with the lights out against your favorite play, and I like how you say it too. You had Odom to Schicker, and what a play it was. But I just don't think that Madison is that strong team that they once were. And I think that's where I give the advantage to the Steel Canyon Cougars. I'm going to say that the Cougars got this one defensively and offensively locked up at least by 10.
Dave, I get mad whenever I make an error on any of these broadcasts that we do, and I had the graphic wrong, but I fixed that. I don't know if it's going to change your pick. Madison is at home, of course, in this game. So that's not going to change your pick, okay. But just want to add, great quarterback play, I thought, from Jeremy Mendez-Gal. I'm not worried necessarily about the 99 yards of total offense. I think this will be a very, very tough game, and I think they're going to need to have a little bit more offense in order to win this game. But I thought he played very, very well. He kind of made the decision easy for Coach Longerbone about what was happening at quarterback. Jeremy played pretty much the whole game. He did play the whole game. He also engineered a touchdown pass in the second quarter to Antoine Walker, which gave the Cougars a 14-6 lead. Now, I will tell you, the Warhawks are coming off a 34-23 win at Rancho Bernardo. Keontae Springs, he's one of the county's top running backs. He's up there with Noah. He's up there with those top backs. He displayed his breakaway speed in the win over Rancho Bernardo. He had touchdown runs of 88 and 80 yards. And although early in the game, Steel Canyon did give up a long run to Mateo Law, they kind of bottled him up after that. However, you'll notice that he did have 360 total yards in the game, including 7 receptions. Keontae Springs is a candidate for the PPR Player of the Year, the UT County Player of the Year. Steel Canyon, maybe they are rated a little bit higher, but I think the home field and Springs are the equalizers in this game, and I'm putting the pressure on the Steel Canyon Cougars to come out with a win. I've got Madison winning this one at home, Dave.
Yeah. Well, I got to say also, I think that, and I don't think they're given enough credit. I think that people tend to forget, the Steel Canyon Cougars, and nothing to take away from the talent of the team, but I'll tell you what, they have hands down one of the best coaching staffs in the East County, hands down, and that's at every position. And I think that's another reason why they have made so many runs and gone deep into the CIF playoffs. But again, I have the Cougars by 10.
Yeah, and I will tell you that the computers really do have this one, I think, considerable in Steel Canyon's favor if you look at the latest ratings. So I think that does bode strong for them. And I don't think this rating is any fluke. I mean, ranked 7th right now by the media, moving up those polls. 7th in the county, the Steel Canyon Cougars. My concern is the 99 yards of total offense last week for Steel Canyon. So we're going to need to see more offense. Get more offense, going to win that game. I don't think there's any doubt about that. All right.
Just remember, before we move on, Ramon, one thing, let's just back up real quick. One more thing I want to touch on. Steel Canyon started off very similar to this last year, and made a little bit too many mistakes. But I'll tell you what, they also, halfway through the season, they got into league, and we all saw what they did at the end of the season to Helix, and they made a pretty strong push. So you don't ever count Steel out.
No, hey, they're ranked number 7 for a reason. A lot of people had them in their county top 10. They are very deserving of that rating. They're playing a fellow top 10 team this week. Like I said, go by those, semi-unofficial, official computer rankings, and really, Steel Canyon is a favorite in this game. The home field will not be enough to match it up, but Springs just looked incredible last week. I mean, look, he's no Kristen, but man, he was great last year, and he's great again this year. Okay, Dave, here's a pretty nice matchup as well. Harriman comes in from Utah to take on Helix. Great win for Helix. We had Jeremiah Fletcher on with us on Sunday, and I really enjoyed talking with him. He's obviously a man who really enjoys playing football and studying football. It seems like to me the Highlanders got that win over the Cajon Cowboys. Elelion Noah scored 3 touchdowns, including the go-ahead score in the fourth quarter. Helix won 28-22 from the visitors from the southern section. Dave, Elelion Noah is poised to become Helix's all-time leading rusher in this game coming up against Harriman. He just needs 13 more yards to pass Reggie Bush, who rushed for 4,925 yards, and he'll do that in just the first carry or two this week. So that's the big news coming out of Helix. Reggie Bush's record's about to go down to Elelion Fato Noah.
Well, I'm sure knowing a person of Reggie Bush's caliber, I'm sure once that happens, I'm sure he'll even be watching. And if he's not on the sidelines, he'll be on the phone and he'll be giving a great congratulations over the phone to Noah. And just a funny one to add to it too. Just remember, he's not the newcomer of the year, but I think that he's going to be the key. He's still going to be one of the biggest keys to the offense, and you can already see that the big difference between last year when he wasn't playing in that Cajon game versus this time. He had so much more to add to it. And again, one of my favorite players, I think that is going to be underrated until he puts up some better numbers. But I think Cameron Brown is going to be one of the keys to this team being successful. And I'm not going to say anything about DeAndre. I know he's a great quarterback. We know that he's got big things happening for him coming up. But I still think that whether it's Brown's hands or whether it's him throwing some key throws into the end zone, maybe some good screenplay, some play action, I think you're going to see some real interesting things offensively from these Highlanders.
Dave, Harriman has already played 2 games on their schedule this season, and I want you to note that their quarterback has thrown no touchdowns. He's thrown 5 interceptions. Therefore, when we spoke with Jeremiah this week, I predicted not 1, not 2, but 3 interceptions for the Highlanders secondary or linebackers this week. Fletcher had that huge interception with 45 seconds left in the win over Cajon. He also recovered a fumble with 3:47 to go in the contest. And then Fletcher and Tyler Tucker combined for a sack in the fourth quarter. Fletcher finished with 15 tackles. You mentioned Delshawn Traylor. He rushed for a touchdown, an awesome touchdown. He took off running for the goal line. He got undercut by a defender, and he flipped up into the air, kind of, I don't even know, if you've seen this happen before, but just a great play there. And Cameron Brown did complete a pass to Noah. It resulted in a 64-yard score that closed Cajon's lead to 16-13 in the second quarter. And Noah's second touchdown, which came in the third quarter, finally gave the Scotties that 20-16 lead. This game could be prime picking for the secondary of the Highlanders.
This Harriman team too, I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, is this not the same team? If it wasn't last year, it was the year before that the Christian Patriots, didn't they travel and play this Harriman team?
No, they played a different team from Utah.
I could have swore somebody played this Harriman team. At any rate, I
really
really
2 years ago.
I really think, I think this is going to be one of those games that Helix on both sides of the ball is really going to be able to light it up. and they're going to have some big double digits, and this will really build up some serious confidence for these Highlanders moving forward.
Dave, I've got a man who disagrees with me in the chat. He agrees with you about Antoine Walker, the man who scored that touchdown last week. He says his team will win by 6 points this week, and I don't doubt it, Antoine. I'm counting on it. I'm just going with what I'm seeing here, and I know you know this is going to be a great game and a tough game. Don't throw Antoine's way. He says, I'm ready. But we know Antoine going to be a lot of run stopping this week for sure. So, anyways, I definitely like Helix, Dave, to win the game over Harriman.
No, for sure. I think that Helix, I'm going to say maybe a couple for the offense, but maybe even 3 scores, maybe a couple of pick sixes, and maybe 2 of them for Fletcher. And I'm calling it Helix.
Hey, don't be stealing my predictions now. I'm calling the picks out, man. You can't. Hey, all right. Dave, we got some other great matchups. These 2 Hills teams I'm going to lump in together because we talk about Grossmont, we talk about Helix. We've even given Granite Hills a great pump up in this season because of their tri-championship. But I'm going to kind of lump the Eagles and Foothillers in together because I think they were facing great challenges last week in their situations, and I think they passed with flying colors. You look at how Granite Hills in their performance against Poway, just really a terrific job. Junior quarterback Justice McComb, he pushed all the right buttons in the 28-24 win. It was the second straight year that the Eagles beat the Titans in the season opener by 4 points, I believe, exactly the same margin. But if this is any gauge, consider that this year that game was on the road. So both games ended in Poway attempting a Hail Mary attempt to end the game with Granite Hills knocking it away. McComb passed for 252 yards and rushed for that 5-yard touchdown, the game-deciding touchdown with 1:53 to play. Really a clutch performance by the Eagles. They led 21-10 after 3 quarters, but the Titans took the lead with a pair of touchdowns, kind of putting the pressure back on the Eagles. Junie Harris scored a pair of touchdowns in that one, and senior receiver James Johnson picking right up where he left off. This is probably one of the most unheralded stats of the week. 9 catches for 130 yards and a score.
Well, like I've said many times, and as you do about your Highlanders, I think that, and you spoke on this actually at the Cougar camp when we were discussing some of these Hills teams, and I do agree. It's going to be the Eagles are one of those unheralded teams, but I think they're going to be very sneaky. They have, like you said, Junie Harris. He's been making some things happen. He also can make some great kick returns. He can make people miss. He's a really big speedster. And let's just face it, that defense of the Eagles has confused just about everybody in the league, not just the league, but the non-league games. If you talk to any of the offensive coordinators, they say they have the biggest trouble trying to figure out the Eagles because they have so many different looks. Not to mention, let's give some credit to newcomer Justice McCombs, too, also taking over for Chris Ostring. And then, of course, we had Jake Siegfried before. I mean, they over at Granite Hills, they just keep producing some pretty darn good signal callers, and they adjust the offense to what they do best. And I think that with this quarterback here, I think with a couple more games under his belt, he's definitely going to be more the throwing type quarterback.
Well, Dave, McComb hit Jacob Setterberg for a 73-yard pass play. Matt Keeley had an interception with just over a minute remaining in the game. Great win for Granite Hills. They are going to be considerable favorites against Mount Carmel this week. The Sun Devils edged visiting Valley Center 22-21 in their opener. Valley Center has been opponent for the Eagles, I believe, in the past. Mount Carmel star Ty Virgin blocked a punt, ran it in for a score in the first quarter, and their quarterback, Carson Tamapau, rushed for a score and passed for another. The Eagles won 35-17 last year. I see the score being very similar to that this year.
And that's exactly what I was going to say, Ramon, is last year, I believe they did make the trip to Mount Carmel, and boy, did they, I mean, they just had an offensive scoring frenzy. And I think with that defense, once again, too, I wouldn't be surprised if the turnover battle actually wins that game and puts up quite a few points. I got the Eagles by at least 2 touchdowns.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. The Grossmont Foothillers, not only did they win, but they won pretty convincingly. Yeah, I mean, the game was close there for a while, but the Foothillers and senior quarterback Jamie Odom looked terrific on opening night, defeating a Mira Mesa team, Dave, if you remember, went to the Division II championship game last season. The game was tied 14-all at halftime, but the Foothillers outscored their opponent 29-0 in the second half. Odom and receiver Sean Williams hooked up on the first play of the game for a 75-yard touchdown right down the right side of the field. Then running back Robert Tucker had a 51-yard catch and run in the first half, but the score was still tied. Still, Tucker had a rushing touchdown in the second half. Odom finished with 287 yards and 4 touchdown passes. He completed a big touchdown pass to Chris Churzon, who gave Grossmont a 20-14 lead with 8:40 left in the third quarter.
Yeah, I think that I mean it's interesting. Both of these clubs, Mater Dei usually has they played El Capitan, the Vaqueros. The last 3 years they played them within 2 to 3 points. It's always been a close one, but I don't know if it was if they just weren't ready for the Crusaders. But I think that maybe Mater Dei also has got a little better over the years, and I think they're going to be a tougher opponent for Grossmont. But at the same time, after watching that scrimmage against Christian, and I know it was a scrimmage and it didn't count, but just the way that they improved because of that scrimmage against Christian, I think that they're starting to look more like the Grossmont League or the Grossmont team of past. And the way they played last week, definitely a well-oiled machine. Jamie Odom was looking real sharp in the pocket. Wasn't having to run as much as he had to run for his life last year. I think this offensive line stays healthy. I think he's going to be good to go. And he had also a lot more assistance from his go-to guy and Robert Tucker. I think that's going to take a lot off of him, and it's going to open up the passing game. So I think Carlo and his squad, I think that they're going to be a lot it's going to be a big turnaround season, I think. And they got a lot of young talent that we still haven't seen as well, too. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm going to say that I'm going to go with Grossmont, though. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that Grossmont's going to win this one by a field goal.
Yeah, Jalen Jones forced and recovered a fumble for an instant red zone possession in the win for the Foothillers last Friday. Matt Diaz recorded an interception, so the defense is looking good too. Mater Dei Catholic broke open a scoreless game against the Vaqueros at halftime by scoring 26 points in the third quarter. 4 touchdown passes for Trevor Appleman, and all of a sudden, Mater Dei Catholic just got by El Cap easily there in that second half. Crusader star running back Aiden Calvert also rushed for a pair of scores, but Dave, expectations are rising fast for the Hillers. They are sure favorites here, and notice on the graphic there they are ranked number 17. Granite Hills, I failed to mention, but I put it on the graphic. They were ranked number 12 this week. So you look at 2 more of our teams. That is the media rankings. Grossmont really on the edge of the top 10. Granite Hills on the edge of the top 10, and Grossmont currently at number 17. So, of course, I have the Foothillers winning this one rather comfortably. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave. Well, the Santana Sultans are going to get what they wished for. They're going to take on the Serra Conquistadors in Tierra Santa this week. Santana kind of pointing towards this game. I don't know if maybe you can remind me why they were so. I know that that's the game where Nathan Temple was injured last year. He suffered a broken collarbone in the game against the Conquistadors. And how tough of a guy is Nathan Temple? Well, he suffered the injury. He played the whole game against Serra. They came back. They won the game 24-22. Santana, they didn't have their regular trainer on staff. They asked the Serra trainer to look at his collarbone, told him, well, you got a broken collarbone here. You played this game with this injury, the whole game. And that would sideline him 7 weeks. Talk about a tough dude.
Yeah, and I think that I don't know if it's so much a revenge game because of the injury, because we all know these kind of things happen, especially at the quarterback position. I don't think it's going to be anything to do with that, avenging a injury, if you will. I just think that they didn't like the way that it went down. They lost their quarterback, and the Conquistadors pretty much just took over the game after that. I think it was a lot of emotions because of losing their quarterback. Let's face it, at the beginning of the season, Santana was picked pretty high to do pretty well in that Valley League. And then once they lost their premier passer, it really affected the season. Now, let's not count anybody out, though. We still had Brooks Mutah, and they still did win. They put together a pretty good win streak. They also had Iverson in there, and he was also doing some great things. They asked a running back to go in there and play quarterback, and I believe they even got down to their third string quarterback due to injury. So for Tim Estes and his coaching staff to keep that Santana team together the way that they did throughout the whole season. I know we're stepping away from this Conquistador game, but I'm just saying they really turned around their season. And I think with this healthy Santana team now, and after they played the way they did last week, I think they're going to have no trouble whatsoever taking care of these Conquistadors at Serra. I think by at least, and I'm going to go out on a limb, at least by 3 touchdowns.
I think one of the reasons why this game is so important to the Sultans, the winner of this game could end up hosting one of those late season playoff games. These are 2 of the top contenders in Division 4. So when they met last year, Serra led Santana 16-0, but in the second quarter, the Sultans then in the third got a 73-yard catch and run from Temple to Smith. Smith finished 15-22 for 224 yards and 2 touchdowns, mostly with that broken collarbone. He threw 3 TD passes, and on the first 11 plays of the game last week, they had 5 touchdowns, Dave, in that win over Mountain Empire. Smith caught a pair of touchdown passes in that one, and Temple threw those to him, and Jared Forster also scored twice. Serra failed to score in an 18-0 loss to Scripps Ranch. The Falcons kept quarterback Timmy Zabrowski on the run and off the scoreboard, even scoring a pair of safeties against the veteran quarterback. And Serra's Dustin Ellison had over 100 yards of total offense in the loss to the Falcons. Zabrowski passed for over 2,000 yards last season, so this matchup could end up being one of those high-flying games that we're talking about. Zabrowski might have been held down last week, but he does have a reputation as a pretty strong passer. Serra, the City Central League champions from last season, they can definitely keep this one close with the home field edge. You look at the newest power ratings, and Serra would point to be the slightest of favorites because their rating maybe is a little higher. They're ranked second in the division. The Sultans are rated 4th, but I've got the Sultans, Dave. I think the momentum is with the Sultans, and the Sultans win this one by a point. All right, taking a look. Let's continue on. Dave, the Christian Patriots. They're going to be angry. They're going to take on Anza. The Patriots suffered a 28-20 season opening setback to their section rival, Santa Fe Christian, last Friday at Valley Stadium. The most exciting play of the game, though, was Christian Salacup returning a kickoff 99 yards with just 1 minute left in the game. They were down 28-7, but Salacup let them know that, hey, this season is not over. This is just the first game. Quarterback Gabe Krug and running back Nate Stein had rushing touchdowns. Christian's defense allowed 333 yards to SFC on 55 carries. Dave, they're going to have to turn it around, but I think they've got an opponent they can do it against, despite the fact that they're going to have to go out of town to do it.
You know what? As we all know, if you look at the history of the Santa Fe Christian and Christian, they tend to go kind of back and forth every year that they play each other. Last year, Christian manhandled them on their field. So, they go back and forth. But I think that the biggest thing they need to tighten up from what I saw out of that game. They need to tighten up that offensive line. Gabe really didn't have as much time. He was flushed out of the pocket quite often, and I got to give credit to Santa Fe Christian. They had their receivers pretty well blanketed, and their safeties in the right spot. So you know what, Santa Fe Christian played good. So I don't want to take anything away from them, but I think Christian easily can bounce back from this, and I'm sure that Coach Beezer and Coach Oliver, I think that they're all putting together a great scheme and a great game plan. They're watching their film, and I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, looking at some of the stats for Anza and how they've been playing first out of the gate. Christian should have no problem. This should be kind of one of those games that puts them back to where they should be, and don't count Gabe Krug out, because I think he's still going to be one of the best kept secrets in the East County, and I think he's going to put up some pretty good numbers. Am I saying that he's a Bradley Jeremiah? The jury's not out yet, but I think he's going to be something special. And let's not forget Mr. Stein, too. I think he's going to be one of the keys to that offense.
Yeah, despite the loss, Dave, Christian is expected to be the favorite on the road, despite the travel to this one. But Anza, I will tell you that they won their opener 45-17, and just reading some of the reports, some of the Twitter comments, that was a bit of a surprise that they were able to win against their particular opponent with that large of a margin. So I would issue that a bit as a caution. I mean, these coaches are, probably seeing film and doing their study. I'm just giving you a synopsis, you and me just talking here, that Anza may be a little better than these ratings might indicate. So I've got Christian winning, certainly, though, by a couple of scores.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same thing. I think Christian's they're gonna go back to what works for them best, and like I said, they're just gonna tighten up that offensive line. I think they'll probably add a few more running plays and maybe ease off the pass a little bit, just to get them comfortable and see what they can do on the ground first, and keep Gabe protected. And we got to tighten up that defense. I mean, to allow that many yards in the first game of the season, and you can't let that continue, or it's going to be a very long season. But I'm going to definitely say I got Christian by 14.
Dave, the Monta Vista Monarchs ran into the buzz of the Lincoln Hornets last Friday, a 42-7 home loss to state division finalist and number 4 ranked team in the county, the Lincoln Hornets. Coach Hamamoto going up against David Dunn in that one, and Coach Dunn got the better of this one. But although the Hornets finally snapped a scoreless game to take a 12-0 lead on a pair of touchdowns, the Monarchs pulled to within 5 points in the second quarter. when senior running back Isaiah Gardner scored on a short touchdown run. Monte Vista went into the locker room with some confidence, trailing by just 5 points. However, Lincoln scored 4 unanswered touchdowns in the second half. The Hornets had 361 yards passing, and as you heard Coach Hamamoto in that interview, they played very, very well in the first half, but just the second half, too many great athletes on the Lincoln side.
Well, and that, when we had our original camp interview with Coach Yamamoto, he had already alluded to all those D1 players that they do have on that Lincoln team, all the speed that they have. Let's not forget they even have a few Helix transfers also on that squad. I think, you know, Lincoln's just going to get better as the season progresses. They're going to be probably one of the better teams in the county, and they're going to be the team to beat when it comes down to CIF too. As long as they stay healthy, they're going to be on both sides of the ball. They're going to be a very, very tough team to beat. But just like Coach Yamamoto said, he wanted to play an elite team like that so he can find out exactly where he's at with this team that, they lost a few people, but find out where they need to tune it up a little bit, maybe on the offensive line, or in this case, tighten up that defense, with Blake being gone. And really, they didn't lose that many of those defensive players, though. I just think they were overmatched, unfortunately. And now playing a Rancho Buena Vista team, I think they got a much better chance at facing these guys. It's going to be a little more even. I'm definitely I'm going to let you talk on it as well, but I'm definitely going to say that Monte Vista's got enough weapons. I think Gardner's going to be one of them, and you know they're going to rotate possibly quarterback situations too. We'll see what Silva can do back there. I think Monte Vista can pull this one off by 7.
Rancho Buena Vista lost 21-0 last week in their home opener against Westview. They're decisive underdogs to the Monarchs in this one, although I will tell you, Monte Vista has struggled in some similar North County road games over the years, just regular season games when they've had to travel north a bit. They haven't done it too many times, but they've been kind of not the best results. But I certainly have the Monarchs winning this one by certainly a couple of scores, if not more. All right, Dave. Hilltop is going to be coming to Lakeside to take on the El Capitan Vaqueros. And the Vaqueros, hey, they pitched a shutout in the first half against Mater Dei Catholic in that season opener, but Mater Dei scored on 4 touchdown passes in the third quarter to soundly defeat our Vaqueros 34-6. The Crusaders led just 13-0 when the Vaqueros got on the board on a 2-yard pass from Wick Hauser to senior tight end Sean Dixon. Hauser had 163 yards of total offense. He rushed for 48 yards in the game, but El Capitan did suffer from some drop passes and some penalties. Donnie Green cracked the 100-yard mark on 13 carries. Also, Kalen Lavallee, a junior, had a pair of receptions for 54 yards for El Cap. Dixon had 5 catches for 58 yards.
Yeah, I think as I recall, Coach Berner, he had he didn't have a whole lot to say about the last game, but I think in this game in particular, I think that he's got a very good shot, and I'm sure he's putting in some extra time preparing for these guys, but. He was talking about Wick and Donnie Green. Donnie Green rushed for 100 yards last week. And as you mentioned, it was a 0-0 game until the half. And then he said where it really came apart, they fumbled the snap on the one going in and then dropped two huge passes before the half. Should have been 14-0 at the half in favor of El Cap. So really, if they tighten up those small things like that, I think that El Cap definitely could handle Hilltop. Looking at the little bit of information and some tweets I saw about Hilltop, I think that El Cap's a better team than they played in this last game. I just think it was a lot of mental mistakes, and they just need to tighten it up a little bit. They have the talent. I mean, Wickhauser's one of the premier passers. I think he's underrated, as a matter of fact. And also Donnie Green. I think he's always going to give you at least 100 yards on the ground. So I'm still going to take El Cap for sure. The Lakeside boys at least by 10.
Well, Dave, Lancers outlasted Escondido in what might have been the most thrilling game last Friday night, 45-42. Hilltop won. Jeremiah Serrano had a 50-yard touchdown run and the decisive touchdown in the fourth quarter. But I'll give you the storyline here. This is what I think you're going to want to focus on after the game when you're compiling your post-game interviews. This game features a matchup of El Capitan head coach Ron Berner going up against his son, Ron, who's a defensive coordinator over at Hilltop. I guess you're siding with the Vaqueros, so either way. Anyway,
Well,
I just want to get your comment on that.
Well, and I enjoy also he's got he tweets quite a bit in favor of his Hilltop team, and as you know, Ron's a little more he's a little more quiet and likes to keep everything under wraps and leave it to the field. So as much as I can appreciate him playing a family member, I'm going to tell you right now, I still think, as Mr. Walker's saying as well, it is going to be close, but I'm going to say El Cap's got this one. They're playing at home, and they're definitely due because they're going to correct all those mistakes.
Yeah, the rankings have this one fairly closely. In fact, I think Hilltop is slightly ahead of El Cap in the computer rankings this week, but El Cap has that home field advantage this week, and Hilltop taking a second straight pretty lengthy bus ride. To me, that's the difference, and I've got El Capitan edging Hilltop by a field goal. All right, Dave, we're running out of time. Well, we got all the time in the world, but let's try to get this done. How about this one? Mount Miguel going up against their sectional rivals in a way. They play Chula Vista every year, it seems. The Matadors, they're falling into a disturbing pattern of late. Wild point swings, and they make great comebacks, but they're always falling short because they've given up too big of a lead. Mount Miguel rebounded from an 18-0 halftime deficit last week to take a 20-18 third quarter lead over Patrick Henry, but the Patriots came right back to go ahead by 20 before a Matador rally came back, but they fell short 40-34. Junior quarterback J.D. Laverdier passed for 4 touchdowns, and he ran for another. After trailing 18-0 at halftime, Dave, the Matadors got on the board in the third quarter when Laverdier hit Kojo Miller, and on the next possession, Laverdier threw a 14-yard touchdown to Jojo Castillo to get them to within 5 points. The Matadors then took the lead when he connected with his top target, Jaheim Allen Pompey, for a 15-yard score. That gave Mount Miguel a 2-point edge, but the Patriots countered with a pair of touchdowns to close out the third quarter and reassume the lead. In the fourth quarter, Miller had an interception and 50-yard return. A moment later, he reeled in his second touchdown reception of the game, and Laverdier had the final touchdown. That's a lot of scoring, typical Mount Miguel game, but they came up just short against Chula Vista. I will mention they did have 3 interceptions against the Spartans.
Well, you know what? And then I have a few quotes actually from JD. He was a little distraught, but he seemed he's really grown for starting off as a sophomore, and he's just a great competitor. Talking about his team fought all the way through to the last whistle, the last quarter. It was a great game by Patrick Henry. We just made a few mistakes, which cost us the game. but it was still only a one-score game. We just need to fix a few things and get smarter with our assignments. We found out who has heart tonight, and now we can move forward with this. And that, so he was giving credit to the Patrick Henry Patriots. And just like you mentioned, Ramon, it was just a few miscues we needed fixed, and our whole offense contributed in the game. A couple of shout outs he wanted to give to that he was impressed with: Jaheim Allen, Anthony Mitchell, Kojo Miller, Jojo Castillo, Muhammad Musa. They were all making plays on the field, and again, they were going on both sides of the ball too. As we know, most of them do have to go both ways. But you and I both know, just as Mr. Walker is mentioning too, JD is definitely somebody that's going to be taking this team. If he gets some more help, he can take this team to CIF for sure. And you know what? It's still an open valley, and anybody can win it. But I think he needs a couple more key components for him to actually get the job done. But definitely a great young man, great attitude. He's got a great heart, a great arm, and he definitely has that great field vision. I just think he needs another couple of key players to get him to where he needs to be. So in this one, I am still going to say I'm going to go with our East County favorites, and I'm going to say Mount Miguel is going to shock the Spartans, and well, I'm going to say Mount Miguel by a point.
Chula Vista lost its opener to La Jolla Country Day 40-20, although junior quarterback Martin Perez threw for 311 yards and 2 scores. These teams will meet for the 5th straight year. Each have won a pair of games over the last 4 seasons. The Spartans won in Spring Valley last year, just 20-7. Dave was the final score, but Perez threw for 311 yards last week in a losing effort against La Jolla Country Day. You got JD. You can see where I'm going with this one. I'm ready for some offense. I'm ready for some scoring. And quite frankly, Mount Miguel cannot necessarily afford to lose this game. This is a must-win, I'm afraid, for the Matadors, given their situation in their non-league schedule and their playoff chances. So Mount Miguel is expected to win, despite the fact this game is on the road. So Mount Miguel better win. I've got Mount Miguel winning this one by a touchdown. All right, Dave. Castle Park is going to be taking on Mountain Empire. We saw what happened with the Red Hawks and their loss to Santana. Santana scored quickly and often, 5 touchdowns in the first 11 plays. The Castle Park Trojans won their opener over O'Farrell 38-8 on the road. Castle Park rushed for nearly 200 yards. They threw just 6 passes last week. Can Mountain Empire win this one?
You know what? I think that they can. They got 2 quarterbacks really they're working with, but I think they're going with Jericho, and they're just really they're just feeling their way out on. Really, it's a whole new team from scratch. I mean, you remember the team that won the Division 5 last year? They were a really tough team. But Coach Van, he built this team from scratch and changed a little bit of the personnel. A lot of people graduated, and they also have a smaller team where they always have to go both ways. They do play with a lot of heart, however. And then you lost the big man. You lost Cam, so I think that they're very capable of winning some games, but I think it's going to take a lot to really be how they were the last couple of years. It's really a young team, and I think it's going to take a whole team effort. There's nobody that really stands out thus far, but I think you know what. They are going to get better. I think it's going to be a work in progress, And was it Marquise? I think he even got injured this last game as well. But and then we also had Dylan that plays both on the offensive line and as a defensive tackle as well. Uh, you know, you get small teams like this, as you know, just like Elkhorn Valley. Uh, I mean, they get winded. Uh, you got to give them a break. And I just think that when it comes down to it, it's just a young team.
I will make one correction. Of course, remember last year the Mountain Empire Red Hawks, the Manzanita League champions. It was Orange Glen, of course, that won the Division V championship over Francis Parker. Mountain Empire had that that loss that really got at them because they lost to Holtville in the second round, a team they'd beat in the regular season. Holtville came back to beat them 37-6 in that awkward situation where they ended up Mountain Empire had to play on the road in the playoffs despite playing Holtville in the regular season. But I've got this game. I just got a home field advantage. The game is rated very, very closely in the power rankings. So I've got to give the nod, certainly, to Mountain Empire. Dave, I just want to mention two other notes going back to Helix. And I didn't know if you saw this on the depth charts this week at San Diego State. Carson Baker has been named the backup starting quarterback at San Diego State, and Michael Shawcroft backup, playing second team at middle linebacker, but still an awesome accomplishment for Michael. How about Carson Baker, second right now in line at quarterback, Dave, for the Aztecs?
Yeah, I tell you what, I think that I would have never pictured both of them at the same time, and I'm sure they're probably talking to each other quite often about going ahead and going forward. And we could definitely see them this year. You know what Rocky Long said, though? He said he's not going to play a freshman, but if he would play Shawcroft, I'm sure that why wouldn't he play Carson Baker?
Well, we'll see. I mean, we have a starter right now. He's in there, and it would take an injury situation. I don't think that they're going to take out the senior right now, but Baker's in there ready to go. There's an 8-man football game on Friday night. New Designs University Park. I bet these guys have the sickest threads in all of football, wouldn't you think? Anyway, they're going to be taking on Foothills Christian at Junior Seau Field in La Mesa. The Knights won their 8-man opener, beating a team from Las Vegas, Democracy Prep, 36-14. The New Designs University Cardinals went 5-5 last season. They're out of the LA City section 8-man City League. They finished 2-1 in their league last year, but they're playing their first game of the season. And I do believe that Foothills Christian probably expected to win that game. Dave, anything wrapping up here with our second week of predictions?
Just wanted to add some players, though, that you would like to keep in mind for that Mountain Empire team that,
Sorry about that.
are going to be some up and coming. Is a senior. He, he's a running back and quarterback, and that's Jericho Brennan. Just for example, I have some stats from the SDFNL game. He had 26 carries for 198 yards. And then Marcus Smith, another wide receiver making big plays, 7 catches, 142 yards. And the O line and the D line have to tighten up a little bit. And what Coach Band was saying is the biggest key is they really got to improve on that secondary. But when you have a young team like that, you don't have a big roster. It's going to take some work, but we saw what happened in 4 years with the likes of Dallas Prince and Cam. I mean, we had a pretty good team last year, but I think that they'll win a few games. But as far as league championship, it's a little early to tell.
All right, Dave. Well, that's going to do it for week 2. Another great, a good show. A good show. I want to thank our chat buddies, Raymond Brown of San Diego Football.net, SDFootball.net, and Antoine Walker, keeping me busy, keeping those chats coming on the screen. We get some more people in here. Thanks to 3 or 4 people that kind of went in and out and watched us live. Really appreciate that. We'll share this video out there. We know we'll get at least 100 or 200 people to view this for us. Another good show, Dave. Big week of football.
Absolutely, we'll be out there, and we definitely enjoy seeing all you guys out there, and we appreciate you keeping us busy here at EastCountySports.com. And for Ramon Scott, great job yourself, and for the show myself, Dave Dickens, and signing off. Thanks again.